Hi guys, and welcome to another Hero of the Week. This week's hero is Ben Chew, a quality journalist and correspondent at the BBC. Now Ben is a bit like Ed Conway at Sky News, where he deals with facts and figures, and he also trashes the misinformation being spread by politicians and commentators online when it comes to a number of different issues. He was asked here about asylum seekers, migrants, hotels and mobile phones. Have a listen to this.
And how many illegal immigrants are there in the United Kingdom?
Well, it's very important this, because you heard Rylan there making a distinction between illegal and legal migration, and polling shows that the public has a very distorted perception of this. About half of the British public think there are more illegal immigrants than there are legal migrants. So let's have a look at the actual proportions here. The most recent credible estimate of the unauthorised population from 2017 was about 810,000 on the left, as you can see there. But the foreign-born population in the most recent census 2021 was far bigger than that, almost 11 million. So that's really important to bear in mind. And as Rylan noted, in terms of the NHS, it's absolutely true that in terms of legal migration, very reliant on those. About a fifth of the NHS workforce have a foreign-born.
And what about this question of hotels and iPads? Are some of the hotels, I've stood outside them, are they 4 stars now if they were 4 stars once?
Yeah, first of all, context. The government does have a legal obligation to house asylum seekers if they can't support themselves. And a bit of context here, asylum seekers aren't allowed to work. So if they weren't housed, they would be destitute. In terms of the hotels, look, the previous government did start to house asylum seekers in hotels, and that is extremely expensive. It's running at about £2 billion a year cost. That's why this government wants to stop using them. Look, some of them are 4 stars, were 4 stars, but we don't have any evidence that they still have those kind of amenities and services available. And there's actually some evidence from this Helen Bamber Foundation which shows quite a different picture. They work with refugees. I think we can see an image from the interior of one of them.
Well, that's not there. My 4-star hotel.
No. So in terms of iPads and phones, look, the Home Office have told us that they don't give asylum seekers phones and iPads, but some charities do try and give second-hand devices to migrants. So it's not impossible that some asylum seekers will have those devices.
There we have it, okay? You know, wouldn't it be great if we could clone Ben Chew and put him on every frigging outlet? GB News, Talk TV, ITV, all of the different outlets, and a lot of them that are pushing the misinformation. You know, to push back on this. He mentioned it here. First of all, the number of people who are in the country. 50% of the public think that there are more people in the country illegally, quote unquote, than there are legally. There are over 10 times more people in the country legally than small boat crossings. But the public have been convinced by the likes of Nigel Farage, of course, and certain conservatives that the bigger challenge, the bigger problem is the small boats, when, as we saw there, it's not. Now, the other point, of course, the asylum seekers are not allowed to work, so they have to be housed somewhere, and the government have a legal obligation. That legal obligation will still exist if Nigel Farage is Prime Minister, so he's going to have to find some place to put these people. If it's not hotels, he will have to provide them with some sort of accommodation. Otherwise, he'll have to let them work, as Ben has pointed out here. The hotels are no longer 5-star, and I've mentioned this and others have mentioned this as well. They cease to be 4 or 5-star hotels when asylum seekers are put in them. They're basically a hostel type accommodation, minimum services provided. And of course, a lot of the hotels that are reaching out to the Home Office are ones that are on the edge, the ones that are close to closing down, and they see this as a lifeline. So we're not talking about generally hotels that are extremely successful. We're talking about ones that are desperate to stay afloat. And of course, they're going to provide the basic services, nothing more than that. And then finally, when it comes to iPhones and iPads and stuff like that, as was pointed out by Ben, but I've often mentioned before, charities provide a lot of these because many asylum seekers need to maintain contact with the Home Office. They need to be able to keep an eye on their claim that's been processed, and very few people actually go to a physical office. A lot of this is done online. And if you don't have a computer, if you don't if you don't have a phone or a computer, a charity will provide one for you. Now, this is the fact. These are the facts. Now, is this going to convince the people, the hardline people, who riot and engage in civil unrest? No, it's not. Because they were not reasoned into these positions, so you're not going to reason them out. There's no amount of facts that you can present them that's going to change their mind, because it's built on emotion. And politicians like Nigel Farage, Robert Jenrick, and certain other Tories know that they can tap into this emotion. The facts no longer matter when you're talking about feelings. And this is where it's going to be difficult. And it's a challenge for all of us to push back. But I think if you know someone in your life who has bought into this rubbish, that asylum seekers are in 4 or 5 star hotels, that they get everything provided to them, that there are more asylum seekers than there are people entering the country illegally, and as Ben has pointed out, a quarter of the NHS staff are foreign born. If you know somebody like this, you need to push back. You need to challenge these people. Ask them where they get their information from. Ask them, why is Nigel Farage saying these things when he knows it's not true? I'm not saying you're going to be able to convince people, you're going to turn them, but we have to try. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.